They say that even the gods can fear the dark. That in the shining halls of Asgard, where golden mead flowed and laughter rang like bells, even there shadows could creep in. And it began with the most beloved of them all, Baldr the Beautiful. Baldr was not simply one of the Aesir. He was their joy, their pride, and in many ways their heart. When he was born, it was said the 9 realms seemed to grow a little brighter. Sunlight glittered more warmly on the waters of Asgard. The grass seemed greener, the sky more blue. Even the frost giants, who normally looked upon the Aesir with nothing but malice, paused and marveled at the child. His hair shone like the wheat fields under a summer sun, his skin glowed as if kissed by starlight, and there was a serenity in his eyes that calmed even the fiercest of tempers. He grew quickly as the gods do, becoming tall and graceful, with a presence that inspired peace. Baldr was more than handsome, he was radiant. When he entered a room, every face turned to him, and every voice grew quiet as if the world wished to hear whatever he might say. And when he laughed, the sound was like music, echoing through the halls of Gladsheim and lifting the spirits of all who heard it. Baldr was not a warrior like Thor, nor a cunning wanderer like Odin, nor a trickster like Loki. He was something different, the embodiment of light, truth, and all that was good in the world. He was the god of purity, joy, and innocence. To the mortals who worshipped the Aesir, Baldr represented the very best of life itself, the warmth of the sun after a bitter winter, the smile of a child, the calm after a storm. But light is a fragile thing, and where there is light there is always shadow. Baldr's life was peaceful until the dreams began. At first they were fleeting things, shadows slipping through his mind at night, vanishing by morning. But soon they became more vivid, more terrifying. Baldr would wake in the darkness, breathless, his body shaking. He saw things no god wished to see, visions of fire and ruin, of the sky splitting open, of monstrous beasts running free. And always in the center of it, he saw himself, pale and lifeless, lying on the cold ground as if all the joy of the world had drained away with his breath. At first, Baldr kept these dreams to himself. He did not wish to trouble the others. But as they grew stronger, he could not hide them any longer. He confided in Nanna, his faithful wife, who loved him dearly, and her worry only deepened his own. Eventually, word of these dreams reached the ears of Odin. Odin was no stranger to the language of dreams. He had sacrificed an eye to drink from Mimir's well of wisdom, had hung himself upon the world tree to learn the secrets of the runes. He knew that dreams were never to be taken lightly, not when they came again and again, not when they carried the weight of prophecy. And so the All-Father mounted his great steed, Sleipnir, the 8-legged horse that could outrun the wind itself, and he rode into the depths of the underworld to seek answers. Down, down he went, past the roots of Yggdrasil, the great ash tree that holds the 9 realms together. The air grew colder, the light dimmer, until he came at last to the gates of Hel, the land of the dead. There he found a burial mound, a low hill under which a Valva, a seeress, lay sleeping in death. Odin used his runes to summon her spirit, forcing her to rise from her grave. Her voice was hollow when she spoke, like the wind through a graveyard. "Who disturbs me?" she asked, though she knew well who he was. Odin, ever wise, gave a false name, for he did not want her to know the All-Father himself had come seeking answers. "I have come," he said, "to ask for whom Hel's great hall has been made ready. Why is the underworld preparing a seat of honor?" The Valva laughed, a sound both terrible and sorrowful. "It is for Baldr the Shining One. Soon he will come here, and soon you will follow Odin. With him begins the twilight of the gods." Odin's heart sank. Though he had expected as much, the confirmation struck him like a spear. He pressed the Valva for more, but she grew silent, retreating back into death, leaving him alone with his dread. When Odin returned to Asgard, his face was grim. The Aesir gathered to hear what he had learned, and though the words were not spoken aloud, all felt the weight of it. Baldr's death was near, and with it the first step toward Ragnarok, the doom of the gods. Frigg, Baldr's mother and the queen of Asgard, refused to accept such a fate. Her love for her son was fierce, and she swore that she would protect him. She left Asgard and traveled far and wide, across every realm, seeking out all things that might one day harm him. She spoke to fire and begged it not to burn him. She spoke to water and made it swear never to drown him. She asked iron, stone, wood, and every weapon forged from them to promise they would not wound him. She spoke to beasts and plants, to poisons and sicknesses, to wind and rain. And every single thing she met swore an oath to spare Baldr's life. When she returned to Asgard, her heart was light. Surely now, she thought, no harm could ever come to him. And it seemed she was right. The Aesir, relieved, decided to test these oaths. In the great field outside Gladsheim they gathered. Baldr stood in the center, smiling, while the gods formed a circle around him. One by one they hurled spears, stones and axes at him. Every weapon bounced harmlessly away. Arrows refused to pierce his skin. Blades could not cut him. Laughter rang out as the gods turned their fear into sport. Soon it became a daily game, a way to celebrate Baldr's invulnerability. Even Baldr himself enjoyed it, smiling as their weapons clattered harmlessly to the ground. It was a game that turned their dread into joy. But there was one who did not share their joy. Loki stood apart from the others, watching. The trickster god was always difficult to read, his heart a tangle of contradictions. At times he was a friend to the gods, saving them with his cleverness. At other times he brought them nothing but trouble. He was fire, beautiful, dangerous, and impossible to hold. And now, as he watched Baldr laughing in the sun, surrounded by friends and family, Loki felt something twist inside him. Was it jealousy? Was it anger at fate? Or simply the urge to prove that even the gods could not defy the natural order forever? Whatever the reason, Loki's mind turned toward mischief. And mischief, when mixed with prophecy, is a dangerous thing. He disguised himself as an old woman and went to Fensalar, Frigg's hall. There he found her at her spinning wheel, weaving threads of destiny as she so often did. Loki, in his disguise, spoke softly, his voice full of false concern. "Is it true," he asked, "that your son cannot be harmed by anything in the world?" Frigg, pleased with what she had accomplished, smiled gently. "It is true. All things have sworn an oath never to harm him." "All things?" Loki asked, feigning curiosity. "Yes," Frigg said. "All save one. There grows in the west a small shoot of mistletoe. It was too young, too harmless to demand an oath from. What could such a little plant do to my son?" Loki thanked her with a nod, hiding the glint of triumph in his eyes. He left Fensalar and went into the woods, seeking out that small, innocent plant. There it was, pale and delicate, clinging to the branch of a great oak tree, feeding silently on its life. Loki plucked it from its branch, his fingers gentle but his thoughts dark. He shaped it into a dart, small, sharp, and deadly. He returned to Asgard with a smile playing on his lips. The next day the gods would gather again to play their game. And Loki would be there, ready to see if fate could truly be fooled. And so the stage was set, the pieces in place for the moment that would shake the 9 realms. The next day dawned clear and bright, the sky as blue as Baldr's calm eyes. The gods gathered once again in the great field outside Gladsheim, eager for their game. The air was filled with laughter, with the sound of weapons clattering harmlessly to the ground. Baldr stood at the center, shining like the morning sun, smiling as his brothers and sisters tested his invulnerability. But Loki was there too, lurking at the edge of the crowd. In his hand, hidden beneath his cloak, was the dart of mistletoe, pale green, delicate, yet sharp enough to pierce destiny itself. His gaze moved over the assembled gods until it found Hr, Baldr's blind brother, sitting quietly on the outskirts, his sightless eyes turned toward the sound of voices. Hr was strong, but he carried himself with a quiet sadness, for he could not join the games of his kin. He could hear their laughter, feel the earth tremble as stones and spears struck the ground, but he could not see their joy. Loki approached him with a voice soft as honey. "Why do you not play, Hr?" he asked, his tone dripping with false sympathy. "Because I cannot see," Hr replied. "I have no weapon to throw, and even if I did, I would not know where to aim." "Ah," said Loki as though struck by a noble idea. "But should you not honor your brother as the others do? I will help you. I will guide your hand so that you may join in their joy." Hr hesitated, but Loki's words were smooth and his heart yearned to take part. He accepted the dart that Loki placed in his hand. "Here," Loki said, his lips curling in a smile that no one saw. "This is a small twig, harmless as the rest. Aim it there where Baldr stands and I will guide your arm." Hr obeyed. The dart flew. In that moment time seemed to slow. The gods turned, expecting the familiar clatter as the weapon bounced away. But this time there was no clatter. No laugh. No cheer. Baldr's smile faltered, his golden face paling. The mistletoe struck true, piercing his chest, and he staggered, his radiance flickering like a dying flame. For a heartbeat, silence blanketed the field. Then Baldr fell lifeless, his body striking the grass with a sound that seemed to echo through all 9 realms. The world held its breath. Frigg's cry was the first to break the silence, raw and terrible, a sound that chilled the heart. The Aesir rushed forward, but there was nothing they could do. Baldr was gone. Hr dropped the dart and fell to his knees, horror etched across his blind face. "What have I done?" he cried, but Loki was already gone, vanishing into the shadows, leaving behind only chaos. The Aesir carried Baldr's body back to Asgard, weeping openly. Never had the golden halls felt so cold. Even the air seemed heavy, weighed down by grief. Odin walked at the front, his one eye dark with sorrow, and it is said that he aged 100 years in that moment. When the time came to lay Baldr to rest, they placed him upon his great ship, Ringhorn, said to be the largest ship ever built. They adorned it with flowers, with gold, with treasures worthy of the most beloved god. They led his horse to the deck so that Baldr might ride in the afterlife. But when they tried to launch the ship, it would not move. The combined strength of the gods was not enough to push it from the shore. So they sent for Hyrroken, a fearsome giantess, who came riding a wolf with venomous snakes as reins. She dismounted, walked to the ship, and with a single shove sent it crashing into the waves with such force that the ground shook. The gods stood in awe, though Thor's hand tightened on his hammer, for he did not like the giantess's presence. But Frigg silenced him, for there was no time for quarrels. Baldr's body was placed upon the pyre, and Nanna, his devoted wife, overcome with grief, threw herself onto the flames so that she might follow him into death. Thor raised Mjolnir, his hammer, and blessed the fire, sending bright flames roaring into the sky. The ship burned like a second sun, its light reflected in the tears of gods and mortals alike, until it was nothing but ashes on the sea. But still Frigg's heart could not rest. She turned to the assembled gods and asked if any among them would dare ride to hell itself and plead for Baldr's return. It was Hermr, another of Odin's sons, who stepped forward. Without hesitation, he mounted Sleipnir and rode into the darkness. For 9 nights he rode, through valleys so black that even Sleipnir's hooves made no sound, over rivers that ran with ice and shadow, past the howling hounds that guard the land of the dead. At last he came to the great hall of Hel, daughter of Loki, and there he found Baldr seated in a place of honor. Though the hall was filled with gloom, Baldr still shone faintly, as if he carried a piece of Asgard's light with him. His eyes were sad, but he smiled to see his brother. Hermr begged Hel to release Baldr, to let him return to the land of the living. Hel listened, her expression unreadable. At last she spoke, "If Baldr is so beloved, let every living thing weep for him. If all weep, then I will release him. If even one refuses, then Baldr will remain here until the end of days." Hermr rode back to Asgard with the message, and the gods wasted no time. Messengers went forth into every corner of the 9 realms, asking all things to weep. And they did, men and women, beasts and birds, trees and stones. Even the earth itself shed tears, and rivers swelled as if mourning. But not all hearts were moved. Far away in a shadowed cave, they found a giantess named KK. When asked to weep, she only sneered. "KK will weep dry tears at Baldr's pyre," she said coldly. "Let Hel keep what she has." Some say she was Loki in disguise, laughing in the shadows. Whoever she was, her refusal sealed Baldr's fate. When the messengers returned and told what had happened, the gods wept again, for they knew Baldr would not return. And so Asgard remained dimmer than before. The laughter in Gladsheim was quieter, the feasts less joyful. The Aesir knew that the first step toward Ragnarok had been taken, and that the end was now inevitable. But prophecy also promised something more, that when the world ends in fire and is reborn from the sea, Baldr will return. He will walk once more in a new Asgard, leading those who survive into an age of peace. Until that day the gods could only wait, mourning the loss of their shining hope and remembering that even the most beautiful light can be extinguished, but also that it can be reborn. And somewhere in the 9 realms, Loki smiled, knowing that the doom of the gods was now truly set in motion. Baldr's death is perhaps the most tragic moment in Norse mythology, not only because it robs the gods of their brightest joy, but because it marks the beginning of their end. It is a story of fate, of love and loss, of light snuffed out too soon, but also of the promise that after the darkness, light will return. If you felt moved by this tale of Baldr the Beautiful and want to hear more stories from the sagas of the Aesir, give this video a like, subscribe to Mythic Odyssey and tell me in the comments, which Norse god or hero should we bring to life next?